one thing that might happen when you're moving things around, you might still be listening and you decide, actually, this clip is going to be better on this side, right? So sometimes you might want to push something over and then you have this gap in the middle. What you can do is you can highlight everything and move it over. Boop. This little snap tool is really helpful. So you can move everything over and it'll snap into place. Or in that gap in between, you can right click and say ripple delete. And I'm gonna zoom out so you see what happens. So I'm gonna right click in the middle, ripple delete, it pulls everything over. That's really helpful because one thing that might happen is that your audio and your footage might get out of sync. So I'm gonna just, for a total example, I'm gonna pull this over here. I copied it, and I'm gonna just make my two things out of sync, okay? So I can tell when I start playing this,
well, the one I told you guys,
it doesn't sound synced, right? Like you can literally hear that he's talking over himself. Right? And even if I press the solo track,
so I said, oh, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna go try it.
You can tell that the audio doesn't match what he's saying. Right? Okay. So when that happens, it's really important to know how to do this manually because sometimes that's just what you have to do. So I'm going to zoom all the way in and I can tell that my waveforms aren't matched. So I can, like, if I zoom in, I can see that my waveforms are actually not in the right place. So I could just move them and try to get my waveforms as close as possible to being synced. Whoop. So I'm gonna just try to make my waveforms as close as possible, but maybe he's not saying the same thing.
Like the regular people, like.
Right? Okay, I can still see that it's a little bit messed up, but maybe these three match this one a little bit more, so I'm kind of just zooming in. Whoop, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna listen.
All of them, like, ambition to be a firefighter.
Right, so that's a lot better. It's still just not quite perfectly in line with the one above it. So what I like to do is select, you can see, okay, I'm selecting these two are white. I like to place a cut and then on the next one, get as close as I need to. You can select these ones and then it allows you to snap them in line. Oh gosh, I'm not gonna do that. So it gets you pretty close. The other things that I will do sometimes is that's one way that gets you close. The other way is just to listen. So for example, I'm gonna use these were out of focus. I'm gonna use these and I'm gonna listen for when he says something, he makes a sound that is visible with his mouth, right?
Yeah, I'm not like the regular people, like.
Okay, I'm gonna listen to this one. Sorry, have this audio.
Yeah, I'm not like the regular people, like, all of them, like,
So maybe when he says people, his mouth is really open.
I'm not like the regular people.
So you can tell his people is gonna start there because that's the sound you make with your mouth, people, right? So I'm gonna place a cut.
People like, people like.
Yeah, so I think it's like, maybe like right here where he says it. And now I'm going to actually solo this other one and I'm gonna hide this top row. So now I'm looking at these two.
Yeah, I'm not like the regular people.
So I'm going back to where he says people, you can see his mouth and I'm gonna place a cut. So now when I move these, they're gonna get to be much closer. So I wanna listen to these two.
Like the regular people, like,
You can hear it's still a little bit off, but it's so much closer. So I can see now that my waveforms are really close together. So I'm kind of just moving things to get a lot closer. So let's listen to that.
People, all of them, like,
right? So that's a manual way that you do it. And then now I know that these cuts are kind of close to where it says people. So I'm just going to listen to this one.
Yeah, I'm not like the regular people.
So he says people. I'm going to pull this up a little bit.
The regular people. The regular people.
That people starts about here. And I'm going to highlight these two, kind of pull them over. And then looking at my waveform, I can tell I'm actually really close. So I'm just going to make it so that I can hear all my sound files.
People like, all of them, like, ambition to be a firefighter.
So sometimes you need to do that to be able to sync your clips when they get out of sync, which is really frustrating, but I think pretty helpful.